So here's an actual practical example that every parent can probably understand is Legos, right? And so we get a new set of Legos, and if Dad had his way, we would build the Lego to perfection. We would glue every piece into place. We would display them on a case because they're an awesome, like to me, a well-done Lego is like a piece of art, right? And so I kind of feel like when I'm sitting there with Gabriel, there's three options, and I to this day I don't know which one to pick. So it's like option number one is, hey buddy, you're gonna do it my way. We're gonna do it together, kind of, but I'm gonna really end up taking it over and doing it, and you're gonna be left with this pristine little thing that I'm gonna be mad if you break. That doesn't seem like the right answer. The other answer is just like, hey buddy, you'll figure it out. I'll sit here if you want. Maybe I'll answer a question, but you do it. You make the mistakes. You rip it apart 3 times. We'll probably end up with some bastardized version of what it was supposed to be. And what do I care? Because you're going to destroy it in 3 minutes anyway. And I'm going to be angry if we put all this time into building a 900-piece Death Star and then you destroy it, right? So it's like there's total hands-on, there's total hands-off. Somewhere in the middle is this collaborative effort that we're working on, but we haven't quite perfected yet. Because if I'm involved with him, he wants it to be perfect, right? Because he knows Dad has the potential and the capability to make it perfect. So then he wants to make it perfect because I'm sitting there with him, but then he gets frustrated, and then it's just like, because of course nobody actually ever buys Lego sets for the correct age bracket because they just look cool. And so there's this real push and pull of like, do I let him do it? Do I take over and do it? Do we try to do it together and make it this collaborative effort that seems kind of like the worst of both worlds? Because then it ends up not being perfect, and he's not happy and I'm not happy. And it's like, Legos are simultaneously one of our great joys as a family. Alina also loves Legos. And it can also be one of our greatest frustrations as a family. And that's just a microcosm of everything else we're talking about.
It's such a good example, though, because not only do Legos have a place in our home, so it's been a part of, especially Everest and I bonding as he's grown up. Like we went through the stages of me doing it and him watching, to doing it collaboratively, to now to the point where he does it autonomously. And I resonate a lot with what you shared. Like I was challenged at first and be like, no, this is the way to do it. But then I paused and I was like, well, why do I think that? It's like, because there's these instructions. And in a way, the instructions are beautiful because there's a nice guide to follow and you have this nice end result. Like you said, it's like, cool, look at this awesome castle we built. Like I can appreciate that. I can hold space for that path. But dude, where it gets really cool is when we've put that aside, because we have a shitload of Legos by now.
Yeah, everywhere.
And dude, and it's just like, what do we want to create today? Right.
Yeah.
And so he gets a pile, I get a pile, we start building. And this is where the imagination comes from, where he's like, Dad, look at this ship. And I'm like, that's an awesome ship, even if it doesn't look like a ship to me.
Right.
And then I start building a tree house. And he's like, oh, cool, well, let's put this on. Because now we're free of the instruction, the prescription of being like, it has to be done this way. And there's also no expectation that it has to be done that way. Right. It just, we're free form building. It takes a different discipline because sometimes I'm just not in the mood for that. I'm like, I want more structure, but that's what comes to mind. There's been some really interesting times where we can just be with each other and build. And dude, this is the most beautiful part. When we're really in that flow, we're not even talking. It's just body language. It's just smiling. It's like, ooh. And then finally we get to a place where we're like, what'd you do? Like, oh, well, I did the tree house. He's like, oh, well, I did the ship. So Legos have a very special place in my heart, just for all the different metaphorical representation, like building and creation. But I think that is where we found a lot of like common ground and just being creators together. It's like, all right, get rid of the instructions. Let's just see what we can come up with in free form.
So do you worry? Because this would be my worry, right? Like I'm always thinking like, where am I rolling my eyes, or where might the listeners be rolling their eyes? Do you worry that one day he's going to get to 9th or 10th grade geometry or calculus where there is actually a prescriptive method to solve the problem correctly? And he's like, whatever, there's no rules. I can build a Lego however I want. It's like, no, eventually for the building to stay standing, there is a correct engineering methodology. There is a real geometry. There is a prescriptive engineering method to make sure this building doesn't collapse on itself. Do you ever worry that like, oh, maybe I'm creating this great free spirit who has a ton of creativity, and later in life when it is important, he's not going to be able to follow the instructions or follow the rules?
That's a great question, dude. Yeah. I could definitely consider that there's certainly a time for engineering calculations. In fact, that's a part of my background. I loved math. I was always excelled in math. And so there's this balance of like form and function, and the engineering mind versus the creative mind, the mechanical versus the art. So absolutely. I think that there's always room for healthy fear is the emotion I tie to that, to be like, okay, cool. There's a way to freeform, and then there's a way where this is important to be done in a sound manner. So absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.